Security, front desk, remove this guy now. He's trouble. Get him out before he starts anything. Do you hear me? Bleep.
Luxury lobby, check-in line, humming. A front desk supervisor leans over the counter and snaps, "You don't belong here, get lost." Phones rise. A guard pivots. The man she points at doesn't argue. He sets a badge on the marble, taps speaker, operations, log this, timestamp, lobby cams, audio archive. On-screen clock, 4:15 p.m., 15 minutes to a board pre-brief. We're not here for shouting, we're here for standards. Stay through the countdown, proof drops, access freezes, and a company learns the difference between policy and profiling. First move, log everything. The lobby runs on a steady rhythm of suitcases rolling and espresso hissing. At the front desk, a supervisor leans across the counter and points at a man waiting with a calm posture and a small badge case in his hand. Her voice cuts through the room. "You do not belong here. Get lost." A few guests turn. 2 phones tilt up to record. A security guard near the elevator shifts direction. The man does not raise his voice. He slides the badge case onto the marble and opens it so the camera on his phone can see the credential. Then he taps speaker. Operations, log this. Timestamp 4:15 p.m. Pull lobby cameras. Archive ambient audio from front desk. I will hold. His tone is level, like reading a checklist. The supervisor frowns, glancing at a colleague for backup. "Policy?" she says. "We serve registered guests only." He looks down at the badge. "Which policy?" "Cite it by number." She does not answer. On screen, a simple clock appears. 4:15 p.m., 15 minutes to a standing pre-brief with the board. The security guard arrives and plants his feet beside the man. "Sir, we have to ask you to move away from the desk." The man nods once. "I am away from the desk. I am also on record. Operations, confirm the log has started." The phone replies with a soft chime and a voice from a quiet room far from the lobby. "Recording on. Camera grids flagged. Audio rolling. Please continue." A guest in line whispers that this seems off. Another whispers about seeing the same supervisor last month stop a family and demand extra paperwork. The room begins to self-organize. People shift to give the man space. One traveler moves a carry-on to create a small buffer so the guard does not crowd him. It is not loud. It is focused. The camera lenses do the talking. The supervisor doubles down. She reaches toward the badge with 2 fingers as if to slide it back. He sets a hand on the case without touching her. "Do not handle my credential. You are being recorded. If there is a policy, cite it. If there is a concern, state it for the log." She exhales, opens a drawer, and taps a laminated sheet that says "Guests only" in bold type. He looks from the sheet to the phone. Operations, note there is no policy number shown on the card. Please capture a still of the sheet and the time. Another chime. Captured. The operations voice adds that prior incident notes exist linked to this station. The man does not react. "Thank you," he says. "Stand by for compliance." He steps half an inch back, giving the desk a clear line for the cameras. The guard begins to say "Sir" again, but stops when a family nearby gently asks him to give the man room. The guard adjusts his stance and keeps his hands visible. The tension is not in shouting. It is in the system coming awake. The front desk printer ticks and spits out a fresh roster. The badge case on the counter reflects a small red dot from a status light. The phone keeps its metronome of soft alerts. The man waits them out. He is not here to win an argument at a counter. He is here to make sure the record exists. Final beat of the scene. The supervisor calls for an override into her lapel mic. She uses the words, "Fraud alert." He does not flinch. He just lifts a finger, not to shush, but to mark the moment for the mic. Operations, mark that phrase and the exact second. Crowd noise drops a notch. The room is now a witness box. Clock on screen. 4:16 p.m. 14 minutes to go. The story has already shifted. It is no longer about a front desk and a raised voice. It is about logs, cameras, and a standard that will not move. 4:16 p.m. holds at the corner of the frame like a quiet warning. The hotel soundtrack keeps playing, but the lobby has a new rhythm now. Short beeps from the phone, a soft thump as a suitcase wheel hits a grout line, a printer warming somewhere behind the wall. The supervisor keeps her stance squared to the counter, one palm down, the other hovering near the drawer where she keeps the laminated cards. Her colleague, a junior associate, reads the room and swallows. He glances at the guard. He glances at the guests who are filming. He looks back at the man with the badge case, and you can see the decision forming to tell the truth when it counts. The man waits. No hurry. He places the badge flat so the lens on his phone can see the letters without glare. He does not announce his name. He announces the process. Operations confirm chain of custody for video and audio. The voice on the line answers with crisp steps. Lobby cams mirrored to off-site storage. Audio archived to case number 416. Badge credential photographed. The man gives a single thank you and rests his hand on the counter edge. Not as a threat, not as a claim, simply to show he is steady. The supervisor tries a new path. She reaches for the keyboard and types a note into the property management system. Her voice is just loud enough for those closest to hear. Guest behaves aggressively. Requests support. The man does not even look up. Operations, please screenshot the terminal at the front desk and capture the language entered under my presence. The junior associate flinches. He looks at the screen and then at the phone. He clears his throat and says he did not see any aggressive behavior. It is barely more than a murmur, but microphones pick up more than pride wants them to. The guard shifts again, less certain now. He radios his supervisor and keeps the channel open long enough for a few words to leak. Holding pattern until management arrives. Copy. The man nods to the guard as if to say that is the right choice. Then he returns to the simple questions. What policy number restricts service to registered guests at this stage? Show it on screen or cite it for the log. The supervisor hesitates and pulls up a generic line about registration required. There is no number. The man speaks low. Thank you. Operations mark absence of specific policy reference. Include the general screen in the record. Phones continue to rise behind him. A traveler near the windows starts a live caption stream so deaf viewers can follow in real time. Another guest quietly moves a stanchion to create a clean corridor between the man and the rest of the line. It is not chaos. It is choreography. The crowd does not chant. They breathe and watch and aim their cameras so angles overlap. 4:17 p.m. slides into view. 13 minutes. The junior associate finally speaks at normal volume. Sir, I can verify there is a reservation under an executive block. He points to a line of text on the screen and reads the letters that match the badge case. The supervisor cuts him off and tells him to step into the back office. He freezes for a second, then shakes his head. I am staying at the desk, he says, and his cheeks color, but his voice holds firm. The guard looks relieved to have one clear statement to anchor to. The man uses that moment. Operations, notify compliance, and legal. Flag this desk location for a real-time review. Also request the audio from the overhead speaker system for the last hour. The voice on the phone confirms already in progress. Then it adds something new. Prior guest feedback exists, citing inconsistent enforcement of policy at this counter. The man replies with only 2 words, understood. The supervisor hears it and straightens as if bracing for weather. For the first time, he picks up the badge and turns it, not to flash a title, but to show a small code on the back. He reads it into the record for accuracy and sets it down again. No big reveal, just a code and a record. He asks the junior associate to read the name of the shift manager on duty. The associate does. He also mentions a second name listed as compliance liaison. The man nods once. Please invite both to the desk within 5 minutes. The guard relays the request. The printer behind the wall coughs again, and the supervisor tears off a strip of paper. She slides it across the counter, a customer conduct notice. He does not touch it. Operations, record the document and the time. The clock ticks to 4:18 p.m., 12 minutes to the pre-brief. The lobby returns to a kind of hush where every sound is sharp. A bell card wheel spins once and stops. Someone in the line whispers, "This is going to end at the top, not the counter." And for the first time, even the supervisor seems to hear it. She lets her hands fall to her sides and watches the phone as if it were a mirror showing a version of the lobby that cannot be argued with. The man waits for nothing dramatic. He waits for accuracy. Once more, he repeats the spine of his method so the record is clean. Policy, evidence, equal application. Then he says the line that will anchor the chapter. We are not here to punish. We are here to measure. The crowd breathes out. The clock holds steady. 12 minutes left. The system is awake and listening. 4:19 p.m. The supervisor taps her lapel mic and speaks in a clipped tone that carries farther than she intends. Front desk requesting removal for disruptive behavior. Possible fraud. Her eyes flick to the phones aimed at her. The word hangs there. The man marks it for the record without heat. Operations tag the term fraud, capture the mic audio, and cross-check against footage of my conduct. The reply is immediate. Tagged and cross-checked. No aggressive movement observed. A new sound enters the lobby. The soft buzz of an internal line lighting up at the concierge podium. The junior associate answers, listens, then glances our way with conflict written across his face. He covers the receiver and says the shift manager is tied up and suggests moving this off the floor. The man shakes his head once. We will keep this at the counter for visibility unless there is a safety issue. He pauses. There is no safety issue. The supervisor tries a paper move. She prints a cancellation notice and slides it across the marble with 2 fingers not quite touching the badge. Your reservation cannot be located. He does not pick up the paper. He reads the timestamp at the bottom and speaks for the log. This notice was generated after I requested a policy citation. Operations note the sequence. The phone chimes. Sequence noted. The junior associate steps closer, his voice steady now. The reservation exists under the executive block, and I can see it. He reads the code again. Several guests nod. Cameras catch the screen, glow on his cheeks. 4:20 p.m., 10 minutes to the pre-brief. The supervisor doubles down. She keys a line into the system that flags the profile for watch list review. The man tilts his phone enough for the lens to frame the monitor without catching faces. Operations capture the screen change. Also request the property rule that allows frontline staff to place watch flags without manager cosign. A beat of silence. Then the operations voice returns with language from the training manual. Manager authorization required for any watch list actions. The junior associate hears it and speaks into the room, clear and even. I did not authorize that. The supervisor stiffens. The guard feels the weather change too. He takes one careful step back and angles his body so he is between the crowd and the counter, not between the man and the counter. Sir, he says to the man, you are well within your rights to stand here and document. The sentence lands like a level. Phones catch it clean. The man nods. Thank you. He turns a fraction toward the guard. Please note your statement for the record with your badge number. The guard recites it. Somewhere behind the desk, a television feed flickers with a muted corporate channel. A crawl at the bottom shows a familiar phrase about standards and equal access. The man notices but does not point. He stays on process. Operations notify legal that a watch flag was attempted without authority. Also, open a preliminary compliance ticket linked to this terminal. The voice on the line acknowledges. Legal notified. Ticket opened. Time stamped. 4:21 p.m. 9 minutes. The supervisor goes for the intercom. Attention security. Front desk requires immediate removal. The audio bounces off the lobby ceiling and makes the room small. A family by the ficus plant looks startled. The man lets it hang for 1 second, so the mics get it. Then he answers calmly, Operations marked that page. Pull the audio from the intercom hub. The operations voice adds that the intercom is already on a rolling buffer, and the last 60 minutes will be preserved to off-site. The man says, good. Then he addresses the room rather than the supervisor. If anyone heard any physical threat from me, please say it now. Silence. Phones capture the silence. The junior associate chooses a side. He slides a small, clear sign holder closer and tucks the laminated guests only slip behind it so the camera can read. Then he brings up the actual policy page on the terminal that lists escalation steps with citations and numbers. He reads the header and the clause that staff must treat identity-neutral characteristics as irrelevant to service eligibility. His voice shakes a little on the first line. It smooths out by the second. The supervisor tells him to stop reading. He does not. 4:22 p.m., 8 minutes. A chime from the man's phone signals a new party on the bridge. A second voice joins. Cooler, measured. Compliance here. We are monitoring. Please read the current actions taken by front desk staff. The operations voice summarizes without adjectives. Attempted cancellation after badge presented. Attempted watch flag without authorization. Intercom call for removal. Use of the term fraud. No aggressive behavior by subject observed. The compliance voice asks one more question. Is there a manager on the floor? Negative. Operations replies. Manager response has not arrived. The supervisor senses she is losing the narrative and reaches again for control. She reaches toward the badge case, not gently this time. The man lifts it away a few inches so there is no contact. He keeps his tone level. Do not touch my credential. If you believe it is counterfeit, call the issuing authority and log the claim. Then he places the badge back down exactly between two faint scuffs on the marble, so the framing is the same for every shot. Small, precise, unarguable. A guest near the rope line says what many are thinking. This is going to the top. The man neither confirms nor denies. He only says the line that steadies the air. Standards are not personal, standards are measured. 4:23 p.m. 7 minutes to the pre-brief. The lobby holds its breath. The system keeps listening. 4:24 p.m. 7 minutes to the pre-brief. The lobby is bright and steady, but the center of gravity has moved from the counter to the open line on the phone. Compliance asks for clarity. Read the training clause tied to watch list actions. Operations answers with clean cadence. Manager authorization required. Documented reason. Time stamped. The junior associate nods as if the words are rails he can finally stand on. He repeats them loud enough for nearby guests to hear. The supervisor looks past him toward the back office, hoping for an exit that has not arrived. The guard shifts to a softer stance. His radio crackles with a question from a higher channel. Status, he answers plainly. No aggression. Subject cooperating. Documentation in progress. The man acknowledges it with a small nod, then keeps his attention on the record. Operations request a mirror of the front desk terminal to an external display so observers can see policy text. The operations voice replies that screen sharing is possible to the lobby monitor by the concierge podium if local staff approve. The man turns to the junior associate. Your call. The associate inhales, then keys the command. The monitor near the ficus blinks from a weather loop to a policy page. Footnotes. Clause numbers. No adjectives. 4:25 p.m. The shift manager appears at last, walking fast but stopping short when she sees the phones, the monitor, the silent crowd. She asks, what is happening? The supervisor answers first. Disruptive guest, possible fraud, attempting to access restricted services. The words are smoother now, practiced. The man does not interrupt. He simply speaks into the phone. Operations mark statement as unverified description and cross-check with recorded conduct. The operations voice replies, cross-checked. No aggressive or deceptive behavior observed. The junior associate adds his single sentence. Reservation exists under the executive block. The shift manager senses competing realities and looks at the policy screen that has replaced the weather loop. She reads, compliance asks a new question. Has any override been attempted on the guest profile since the interaction began? Operations confirms. Attempted cancellation after the policy request. Attempted watch flag without authorization. Intercom, call for removal. The shift manager blinks at the list as if seeing it on a ledger that will not forget. She turns to the supervisor. Did you attempt a watch flag? The supervisor starts to shape a justification. It is for safety, because the man lifts one finger and speaks not to her but to the record. Finish that sentence with the exact behavior you observed. The pause is a small canyon. The manager waits. The crowd stands still. The supervisor says she believed the badge was not valid. The man answers without heat. If you believe that, call the issuing authority. You do not touch it. You do not alter my profile. You log the claim. 4:26 p.m. The compliance voice tightens. Not angry, just precise. Front desk supervisor, state the policy number that supports a watch flag decision based on the appearance of a credential. The silence stretches. The junior associate rescue comes in the form of the actual document visible on the lobby monitor. Watch flags require documented incidents or verified fraud. Appearance is not a basis. The shift manager exhales as if a pressure seal has broken. She says, "Thank you," to the associate in a voice that carries. Then to the phone. "Compliance. We will revert any unauthorized changes." A new tone joins the call. "Legal here. We are on. Do not remove the subject. Maintain visibility at the front desk. Hold all edits to the profile until review." The lobby seems to lean toward the voice. The guard nods again and takes a half step farther from the man to make the posture unmistakably non-confrontational. The man never raises his volume. "Operations, please add legal to the case file and mirror the intercom audio log to their channel." The reply is immediate, mirrored, and archived. The shift manager switches the counter screen to a different tab. A staff chat window is open with a few short lines timestamped during the last 10 minutes. One of them mentions guests only and a code that looks like a habit rather than a rule. The manager reads it and her face changes. She asks the supervisor if this phrasing is standard. The supervisor says it is how they have always kept the line moving. The room absorbs that sentence. The man answers only with the structure he has used since the first minute. Policy, evidence, equal application. He does not add a lecture. He leaves the words to burn on their own. 4:27 p.m., 5 minutes. The monitor now shows an internal quality metric, a simple bar chart that tracks flagged incidents by shift over 3 months. The bar for this desk is higher than the others. Not outrageous, just undeniably higher. Compliance asks the manager to read the numbers. She does. Her voice is steady. The supervisor begins to say that this is a difficult location with difficult people. The man does not let that phrasing float into the record unchallenged. Operations mark that characterization, attach incident rates, and compare across similar properties. Then he rests his hand flat on the marble to end the sentence. Phones keep filming, but the lobby feels quieter than at any point since this began. The spectacle is over. Procedure has the floor. The guard moves his radio to his other shoulder and watches the edges of the crowd rather than the man. The junior associate prints a clean copy of the policy page with citations and slides it toward the manager, not the supervisor. The manager thanks him out loud again. It matters that she says it where everyone can hear. The man checks the clock. 4:27 p.m., holds for a breath, then flips to 4:28. 4 minutes to the pre-brief. He speaks the simple next step that will carry the story to the top without anyone raising a voice. Operations connect this case to the executive liaison for the board. Include policy citations, attempted overrides, intercom audio, and the current on-floor status. Keep the monitor visible. Keep the crowd as witnesses. No removal. Standard only. The system acknowledges. Connection requested. Case file complete to this point. The lobby does not cheer. It does not need to. The machine that matters is awake and aligned. 4:28 p.m., 4 minutes to the pre-brief. The concierge monitor holds steady on the policy page while the lobby breathes in one long chord. A new voice cuts in on the call, low and exact. Executive liaison joining. Read the file from the top. Operations summarizes without commentary. Badge presented. Policy citation requested. Attempted cancellation afterward. Attempted watch flag without manager authorization. Intercom call for removal. No aggressive conduct observed. Compliance and legal on the bridge. The liaison asks if the shift manager is present and if the monitor visible to guests matches the internal view. The answer to both is yes. The liaison asks for the name of the supervisor who initiated the actions. The manager gives it. The supervisor faces the floor, not the phones, jaw tight. The liaison does not address her. The voice speaks to structure. From this second forward, no change to the guest profile unless legal approves. No removal, visibility required. Shift manager, reverse any unauthorized flags now and confirm. The manager complies. On the monitor, the watch list tab empties. A small movement passes through the crowd like a breeze over water. No one cheers. The moment is not about a win. It is about a correction that lands in the open. The man rests 2 fingertips on the badge case to keep it centered for the camera. He asks a short question into the phone. Do you require any further demonstrations for the record? The liaison replies that what matters now is chain of custody and preserving the intercom audio. then adds one more request. Read the exact phrasing used by front desk to label the guest during the intercom call. Operations reads the transcript line by line. Front desk requires immediate removal, possible fraud. The words do not grow softer on playback. The room hears them as artifacts, not insults. 4:29 p.m., 3 minutes. The shift manager clears her throat and speaks to the man directly for the first time. Sir, we will complete check-in for you now. He does not move closer. He does not accept the key. He stays with the record. That will wait. We will finish the log. Operations, confirm that an external mirror of all steps is now tied to the executive file. The phone answers. Mirrored and secure. The liaison asks a new question for the floor. Are there prior complaints connected to this desk that correlate with inconsistent use of policy? Operations confirms a pattern in the last quarter. The manager closes her eyes for a second, then opens them and faces the monitor. Read the numbers, the liaison says. She does. The count is not outrageous. It is enough. The guard has shifted to crowd management posture. He watches edges, not the man. He speaks softly into his radio. Situation stable, documentation ongoing. He gives his badge number again, unprompted, as if to underline that he will stand on what he just said. The junior associate prints the reservation page with the executive block listed and places it near the monitor, not near the supervisor. He has chosen a lane and he stays in it. A traveler near the window whispers he is the only one doing his job. The comment does not spike the room. It just lands and disappears into the quiet. 4:30 p.m., 2 minutes to the pre-brief. The liaison asks the manager to walk through corrective steps in order and to state them out loud. She does. Unauthorized flags reversed, profile restored. Intercom audio preserved, staff notes appended, policy screen displayed for transparency. Compliance cuts in to add one more. Hold all discretionary overrides by this desk pending a review. The manager says yes. The supervisor shifts weight as if ready to object, but the words do not come. The ledger on the monitor is harder to argue with than a person. The man never claims the floor with a title, he claims it with the next precise action. Operations, spin up a secure link for the board pre-brief and attach this live session. The liaison approves. On the monitor, a simple message appears. External review in progress. The phones catch it clean. A tourist in the back asks if this is really happening. Someone else whispers that the hotel is part of a larger group. The idea begins to connect cell to cell across the lobby. This is not a single desk problem. It is a standard problem. 4:31 p.m., 1 minute. The liaison speaks to the manager in a tone that is not unkind. You will need to stand here for the next steps. Keep the screen visible. Keep your hands off the keyboard unless instructed. Confirm. The manager confirms. The guard nods again, almost like a bow to the process rather than a person. The junior associate straightens his tie and looks like someone who might sleep tonight for the first time in weeks. The man finally moves his badge off the marble and puts it back in the case. He does not pocket it. He sets the case on the counter where the lens can still see. Then he speaks the line he has avoided saying until the record could hold it. Operations. Connect me to ownership. The lobby does not gasp. It does not need to. The countdown is almost over, and the next voice that joins will decide whether this story ends at a front desk or ripples past it to the top floor. 4:32 p.m., the lobby monitor blinks as a new secure line opens. A voice arrives that does not need to raise itself. Ownership on. I am looking at the feed. Read me the case file. Operations delivers the summary like a ledger. Badge presented. Policy citation requested. Attempted cancellation after. Attempted watch flag without authorization. Intercom call for removal. Compliance and legal connected. Manager present. Supervisor identified. No aggressive conduct observed. The voice is silent for a beat, the way people are when they mark the weight of something. Ownership asks a simple question. Has the guest identified his role? The man answers only with process. Chain of custody is intact. My role is not required for the record. Ownership accepts that. Then to the manager. Do you see the policy page on the monitor and does it match your training? Yes. Then say your next steps out loud. The manager reads what she already began. Reverse unauthorized actions. Preserve intercom audio. Hold discretionary overrides at this desk. Complete review with compliance and legal. Ownership says good. Now address the word that started this chain. Fraud. The manager swallows and states that there was no evidence of fraud. The supervisor tries to retrieve her authority with volume. We were protecting the property. The cameras catch a half turn of heads, but no one speaks. Ownership does not challenge the claim with rhetoric. Ownership asks for data. Operations. Read incident rates tied to this desk compared to others. The numbers land as clean as steel. This desk has a higher rate of escalations, marked guests only relative to comparable locations. The junior associate looks at the floor, then looks up. He adds, without fanfare, that he has flagged this pattern before. Ownership asks when. He gives the week and the day. Operations confirms a note exists from that date, 4:33 p.m. The guard keeps his attention on the edges of the crowd. He has become part of the room's proof rather than its pressure. Ownership addresses him with a courtesy no one expected. Officer, did you witness any aggression or refusal to comply? No. The man has documented and remained in place. Thank you, Ownership says. State your badge number for the record. He does. A light near the printer glows. The supervisor taps a key to clear a queue and stops when the manager says leave it. The monitor shifts to a staff chat archive with timestamps. Ownership has operations read 3 lines that matter. Guests only. Move him along. Fraud alert. The room listens to the words like a recording of a weather pattern that is finally getting named. Ownership asks the supervisor one more time for a policy number to support her sequence. She cannot provide one. The room does not gloat. It holds. The man speaks at last, beyond commands. Standards are not a mood. They are a map. That is all. Then he returns to the steps. Operations. Connect this file to the board pre-brief and maintain the lobby monitor for transparency. Legal confirms. Compliance confirms. Ownership says proceed. A soft new tone arrives on the call, a join from a short list that matters. The executive liaison announces that the board pre-brief has started and the live session is attached. Ownership asks the manager to face the crowd and read the corrective actions once more so the mirror is perfect between floor and file. She does. Unauthorized flags reversed, intercom audio preserved, edits held. Review scheduled. The crowd does not clap. It stands like a jury that knows a verdict is coming and does not need to shout it into being. 4:34 p.m. Ownership asks the man if he requires service now. Not yet, he answers. Finish the log. Also, one request. Promote accuracy on the floor. The words move the junior associate before anyone else. He looks stunned that someone would remember to lift him in the middle of this. Ownership hears the line as intention, not theater. Ownership asks the manager for the associate's name and tenure. She tells them. Then the instruction comes in a neutral voice that carries more than volume ever could. Effective immediately, place him as interim lead on this desk pending full review. HR to process later. The lobby does not cheer. The air changes. The supervisor looks like she might argue again. Ownership does not break stride. You will step away from guest contact now. Leave your station. Legal will arrange your interview with compliance. The security officer does not touch her. He simply tilts his body so the path behind the desk is clear. The supervisor leaves the keyboard. The manager nods once to the guard, then faces the man and says, "Thank you for your patience." He says nothing in return. He keeps the file clean. 4:35 p.m. The countdown that opened the story is almost spent. Ownership speaks the cold line that closes a chapter without raising dust. For the next 30 days, freeze discretionary overrides by this property until recertification is complete. Audit last quarter's escalations from this desk. Report to me and to legal. The manager confirms. Compliance schedules. Operations logs. The man lifts the badge case, closes it with a quiet click, and sets it back down where the lens can still see it. The lobby feels different now. Not because someone won an argument, but because the system chose a spine and stood up. 4:36 p.m. The bridge is quiet in a way that means decisions are forming. The lobby monitor shows the case file stitched together in real time. Ownership asks, one last process check. Operations. Do we have chain of custody for every artifact? We do. Intercom, CCTV, terminal screenshots, Staff chat, guest statements, badge photos. The list reads like a spine. Good, ownership says. Now we resolve. The executive liaison cues the pre-brief window. Board leadership is listening. The man has not once asked for a title to be read. He has not needed it. Still, clarity matters when the room shifts from policy to consequence. He turns his phone a fraction so the badge case is framed and speaks in the same level voice he has used since minute one. For the record, I am the ethics auditor and board representative for the ownership group. I am here for standards. No ornament, no rise in volume, just placement of the fact exactly where it belongs. It lands with precision, no gasp, just a settling. The guard steadies his stance without thinking. The junior associate straightens a stack of forms that no one will need for the next few minutes. The shift manager takes a breath you can see from 20 feet away. Ownership moves immediately to structure. Legal, prepare a notice of suspension for the third-party operator assigned to this desk. Compliance, freeze their discretionary access across properties pending recertification. Operations, switch front desk permissions to owner control, effective now, safeguard hourly staff, schedules and pay. 4:37 p.m., the monitor updates. A small banner appears at the top of the staff portal. Vendor access frozen pending review. The supervisor, now off guest contact, watches it appear and understands what it means. The decision bypassed argument and went straight to architecture. The man does not gloat. He marks the steps cleanly for the file. Terminate authority for unauthorized overrides. Freeze credentials for the vendor across the portfolio. Log all related incidents for audit and potential referral. He does not add heat to the verbs. They do not need it. Ownership asks the manager a hard, humane question. How many of your people are vendor assigned and how many are property employees? The answer matters. 3 vendor supervisors, 7 hourly staff under their schedule. Ownership responds without hesitation. Hourly staff will be paid on time and offered temporary placement under owner control while review proceeds. Supervisors step off the floor. HR will route next steps. The guard looks relieved to learn that consequences will not land on the lowest rung first. Someone in line whispers that this is how you fix a system without breaking the people who keep it running. 4:38 p.m., legal reads the suspension language into the record. Effective immediately, the master agreement with the vendor is paused. All access to property management systems by the vendor is revoked pending recertification. The liaison adds a clean delivery instruction. Issue notice to vendor principals tonight with excerpts of this file attached. No adjectives, only artifacts. The printer wakes and begins to push out a stack that will be scanned rather than handed around. The lobby remains a witness box. The man does one thing that looks like theater but is not. He turns his phone slightly so the camera catches the concierge monitor, the policy page, and the human faces standing still to listen. He speaks to the quiet. This is not punishment, this is a reset. Equal application is not a slogan, it is a measurable practice. Then he returns to the ledger. Compliance, slot recertification, dates within 10 days, remote and on-site, require sign-off from legal and ops, add an observation window of 90 days with random spot checks. The voice on the line says scheduled and sent. The junior associate exhales, braces, and stays at his post. 4:39 p.m., the board pre-brief toggles to a side channel no one in the lobby can hear. Ownership remains on the floor feed. One more step, the voice says. Audit last quarter for patterns of guests only, language and watch flags tied to this vendor at all properties. If we see the same slope, we proceed to terminate the contract entirely. The words are plain, the room understands them. Someone near the windows tilts their phone down and just watches with their eyes as if to give the moment a little dignity. The manager faces the man and speaks like someone who knows the next hours will be long but necessary. Sir, your room and any associated services will be managed by owner staff. She stops herself before saying anything soft and instead reads the corrective actions once more. Flags reversed, profile restored, intercom preserved, edits held, review scheduled. Access frozen for the vendor. She looks at the junior associate. Interim lead confirmed. He nods. He looks like a person who will sleep and then show up early. 4:40 p.m. The countdown that opened the story is nearly spent. Ownership asks the man if he requires anything else recorded. He answers with the same minimalism that turned this lobby into a lesson. One line, log everything until the review is complete. Then he adds a second, not for drama, but to close the circle between floor and file. Standards only move when someone holds them still. The phones keep rolling, but the scene feels complete. The company in question is not a hotel brand in the air. It is the operator that tried to use policy as a mask. That company just met a standard it could not bend. 4:41 p.m. The lobby holds a steady hush as the first ripple leaves the building. Operations reports that vendor credentials across sister properties have flipped to read only. No edits, no watch flags, no removals. A small banner appears on each terminal. Owner control. The words are not angry, they are ballast. The junior associate watches the concierge monitor update and nods to himself like someone seeing a lock click into place. The manager speaks to the room without a speech. Guests, thank you for your patience. Check-in will continue at this counter under owner's staff. She directs 2 hourly employees to open a parallel lane and assigns the guard to help with flow, not confrontation. The phones keep filming, but most people lower them a few inches when they hear the tone of her voice. The work of a hotel is still the work of a hotel. It will proceed under a better light. On the call, legal drafts the formal notice for the vendor's principals. It is 1 page and not a performance. Access suspended pending recertification. Intercom and CCTV preserved. Attempted unauthorized watch flag documented. We expect corrective training, audit cooperation, and accountability for supervisory conduct. The line that matters comes at the end. Pending portfolio review, termination of the master agreement is on the table. Ownership asks for delivery within the hour to both email and the contract portal. Operations confirms outbound 4:42 p.m. Compliance asks permission to collect voluntary statements from witnesses who filmed. The man answers yes with guardrails. Consent only. No posting, shaming individuals. Artifacts go to the file, not to a feed. The crowd responds with small gestures that read like civic behavior. A traveler offers her clip and asks for the case number. A family declines and is thanked. The guard positions a small table with pens and a neutral placard that simply says, documentation in progress. The room treats the process like a fire drill they actually practiced. The supervisor has stepped back from guest contact, posted near the service door. She looks less defiant and more stunned, like someone who expected the moment to end with a scene and instead met a system. The manager does not add humiliation to the ledger. She asks security to escort the supervisor to an office for HR and compliance interviews. No cuffs, no theater, just a clean line out of the lobby. The guard moves with care to block camera angles that would turn a personnel matter into a clip. 4:43 p.m. Ownership turns to the people who will keep the desk running tonight. Manager, you will brief your team on the hold of discretionary overrides and the visibility requirement. Hourly staff will be paid for any shift disruptions. If you need additional support, call the operations pool. The junior associate, newly tagged as interim lead, gets a direct instruction. You will conduct a 5-minute huddle every shift for the next week. Read the policy number out loud, read the escalation steps. He says yes, and you can hear it is not a nervous yes. It is a person recognizing what clarity feels like. The man asks for one last element before he lets the lobby move on. Operations, open an email stub that will become the public statement if needed. Keep it plain. We do not announce a scandal. We announce a standard. Compliance drafts. It reads like this. We are reviewing a vendor's application of policy at one of our properties. Access has been reset to owner control during a portfolio review. Guests will not experience service disruption. We will share outcomes when due diligence concludes. Legal trims, nothing. 4:44 p.m. A soft alert sounds in the background systems as other properties acknowledge the freeze. One front desk in another city requests immediate guidance. Ownership routes them to the same policy screen and instructs on visibility and logs. The fix scales because it is not charisma, it is steps. In the lobby, the first guest in line is waved forward. The interim lead issues a key card, states the check in terms, and smiles with relief, not theater. Someone in the second row puts their phone away and claps once before catching themselves. The sound is small and human. It does not change the air. The man finally accepts his own key card, not as a victory token, but as evidence that the counter now runs the way the manual says it should. He asks the manager to place a copy of the corrective actions at the podium for the next 24 hours. She does. He thanks the guard by badge number and the junior associate by name. He does not offer a speech to the room. He gives them a sentence that fits on a receipt. Standards travel, keep them in the light. 4:45 p.m., 30 minutes after the first insult, and 15 after the decisive freeze, the lobby looks like a lobby again. The difference is not invisible, it is logged. The monitor still shows policy, the intercom buffer still rolls to off-site. The vendor company that treated policy like a gate is now outside the gate, waiting for recertification. It cannot skip. The man closes the call to ownership with the same 4 words that opened his side of the story. Log everything until done, then he steps out of the frame and lets the building go back to work. 4:46 p.m. The elevator chimes once as security guides the former supervisor toward HR and compliance. No parade. No cameras chasing. The desk keeps moving under owner staff. On the bridge, ownership asks for a last sweep before they drop off. Operations pull 90 days of front desk actions across the portfolio for guests-only notes and watch flags. Break it by property, shift, and supervisor. Compliance adds one more cut by time of day and staff tenure. Legal marks it for privileged review. The request is not grand, it is granular. That is how it will travel. The manager starts a quick floor huddle. Visibility stays. Overrides held. Read policy out loud before you cite it. The interim lead adds a simple phrase that lands like a handrail in a stairwell. If you cannot cite a number, it is not policy. The 2 hourly staff nod. They split the line and begin check-in with a cadence that sounds like service again. The guard steps to the corridor and keeps it clear without looking like a wall. 4:47 p.m. IT confirms that vendor's single sign-on is revoked at every property in the group. A small red badge icon appears on the staff portal header with a note that says, "Read only until recertification." The words look redundant on purpose. Operations adds a watch to alert if any terminal tries to create a watch flag while the freeze is in place. If it pings, it will ping straight to legal first. The lobby does not see any of this, but you can feel it in how the room exhales. The man remains at the counter long enough to close loops. He asks the manager to print the corrective steps with timestamps and post the sheet at the podium for 24 hours. She does. He asks the interim lead to set the next shift huddle time and add the names of staff who spoke truth to the on-system thank you list. He does. The man thanks the guard by badge number again, and the guard says, "My job is to keep people safe, sir. Now I know that includes the record." 4:48 p.m., compliance begins, interviews in a quiet office. The supervisor sits with a representative. The questions are clean. What did you observe? What policy number did you rely on? When did you call for removal? Do you understand the difference between suspicion and evidence? The answers will live in a file, not on a clip. The goal is discipline where due and training where possible. Ownership will decide scope when the data arrives. Across properties, small signals show up in the operations feed. A sister hotel posts the same policy page to its lobby monitor. Another opens a 5-minute huddle with the exact phrase, "Equal application is measured, not guessed." A third requests immediate access to the recert module. Compliance replies with a slot in 3 days and a remote session tomorrow for basics. This is how a fix scales. Not as a post, as a habit line by line. 4:49 p.m. The public statement stub sits in draft. The man edits one sentence for clarity. We are reviewing a vendor's application of policy across several desks. Access sits with the owner during review. Guest service continues. Outcomes will be shared after due diligence. He deletes any adjective that tries to creep in. He leaves the nouns. Policy, review, access, guests, outcomes. Legal smiles into the line without sound. Back at the counter, the interim lead asks the manager for a moment. He wants to confirm how to handle edge cases. Walk-ins with no ID at midnight. A cash deposit request when cards fail. A request for late checkout when the system is tight. The manager brings up the clause numbers and reads them as if marking a route on a map. She adds the simplest test. Could you defend the same decision in a room like this one with the monitor on and the mics open? If yes, it is likely sound. If no, Stop and call. 4:50 p.m. Ownership drops off the bridge with one last instruction that sounds like a signature. Protect the witnesses from retaliation, document any hint of it, and promote accuracy when you see it. The interim lead hears only the middle line in his chest. He looks toward the guests who filmed and repeats a soft thank you. He does not ask for copies. Compliance has already set the table and a consent process. The line keeps moving. The man finally pockets the badge case. He tucks the phone in his jacket but leaves the camera pointed down so the time is still visible should anyone need to anchor a sentence. He does not make an exit line. He asks the manager if she has enough staff to run until shift change. She says yes. If not, call the operations pool. He nods. Then he gives the 3-beat he came here to enforce. Terminate unauthorized authority. Freeze risky access. Log everything until measured. It does not land like thunder. It lands like a checklist pinned to a wall. 4:51 p.m. He turns toward the bank of elevators. The crowd parts without fuss. Someone calls thank you. He does not turn. He raises a hand at shoulder height for 1 second, the way people do when they know the work is not about courtesy, but they accept it. The doors slide closed on marble, a policy screen, a line that now looks like a line, and a desk that is quieter because the system is louder where it should be. The lesson is not a secret. It is visible, it is time-stamped, it will be there tomorrow morning when the first shift clocks in and reads the policy aloud before the first keycard prints, 5:00 p.m. The elevator delivers him to a quiet floor with glass that turns the city into a soft grid. The board pre-brief window sits open on his screen, the lobby feed minimized to a thumbnail. Operations reads the closing status in a voice that sounds like a level. Vendor access at all properties is read-only. Intercom and CCTV mirrored, staff chat archived, unauthorized flags reversed, witness consent table active, manager on floor, interim lead assigned. The list is not dramatic. It is complete. He asks for the first slice of the 90-day pull. Not a dashboard, not a heat map. Raw records by shift and supervisor with the exact phrase, guests only and any watch flags. Compliance drops a time-stamped file into the case. Legal adds a narrow reminder for privilege. He scrolls, not to hunt for villains, but to see pattern and slope. You can read bias like a trend line when the noise is stripped away. 2 properties show a steady rise on late shifts. One desk has 3 watch flags in a single week with no manager signature. He circles that row without comment and types 2 words, on site. 5:12 p.m., HR joins the bridge. They confirm the supervisor is in a quiet room and that an advocate is present. They ask for scope, he keeps it crisp. Interview. Determine whether conduct was willful or rooted in training failure. Secure devices and accounts. Offer EAP regardless of outcome. Do not allow humiliation to become policy. Then he adds the protection that matters most in the first hour. Shield hourly staff who told the truth. If anyone attempts to ice them out of shifts, I want it in the file within the day. Across the portfolio, small lights blink as property teams acknowledge the freeze. A coastal hotel posts the policy page at its podium. A mountain resort schedules a 5-minute pre-shift read with clause numbers printed in large type. A downtown tower asks if it can mirror the lobby monitor for transparency until the first review is complete. Operations says yes, it is not a brand stunt, it is a standard you can see. 5:20 p.m. The vendor sends a polite email asking to speak with ownership before notices go formal. Legal answers with a calendared slot after the initial audit window and attaches the 1-page suspension letter. No debate about words, no adjectives. The vendor replies with language about safety and hard decisions at busy desks. Legal replies with the single question that matters. What policy number authorized a watch flag without a manager's signature? The thread goes quiet. He drafts an internal note to owner staff that will arrive at shift change. Keep service moving. Keep the policy visible. If you cannot cite a number, stop and call. Do not argue at counters. Document. He adds a short line about the interim lead at the lobby desk who read policy out loud when it mattered. Name the behavior you want repeated. Then secure it with policy so it is not about charisma. 5:30 p.m., the pre-brief wraps. Ownership gives 3 sentences for the record. Freeze stands. Recert in 10 days with remote primers sooner. Portfolio audit underway. Then the line that always sounds like the first page of a manual rather than a speech. Protect guests. Protect staff. Protect the log. The bridge clears to a hum. He pulls up the witness table intake. Consent forms are clean. A half dozen clips are already mirrored to the case with angles that overlap, so any claim about gestures or volume can be tested against time and light. He tags one statement with a quiet thank you and anonymizes it for the training deck. You do not change hearts with a poster. You change habits with examples that hold when someone is tired. 5:40 p.m. The manager sends him a photo from the lobby. The policy page sits in the sign holder at the podium. The interim lead, Jamal, stands at the center of the counter with his hands loose and his voice low. A guest smiles in the background at nothing more than a key card that works. He forwards the image to compliance with a note. Use this frame when you build the module. No drama, just a standard in focus. He drafts the outline for that module in 3 sections. What policy is and is not, how to cite and show it, how to log and escalate without theater. Each slide will end with the same test. Could you defend this step on a floor with the monitor visible and the mics open? If yes, proceed. If no, stop. He adds a role play that fits the exact pattern from the lobby and scripts the questions, so trainees practice saying policy numbers instead of phrases, like that is just how we do it. 6 p.m. The public statement remains in draft. He leaves it there. No rush to speak when the fix is in motion. He sets a reminder for morning. If rumors flare, the line will be simple and verifiable. Review in progress. Access under owner control. Guests not disrupted. Outcomes shared after due diligence. The brand does not need to sound righteous. It needs to sound measured. Before he closes the file for the hour, he types 3 follow-ups. Add a retaliation watch to scheduling at that desk. Invite Jamal to the next regional quality call to read policy out loud for 2 minutes. And schedule a quiet check with the guard who named what he saw without being prompted. Send thanks, then write it into the record. He hits send, and the screen returns to the grid of a city that does not care who is right or wrong, only whether things work. The lesson from the lobby will travel because it is built from steps a tired person can follow at 2 a.m. That is what makes a standard real. 6:30 p.m. The lobby has settled into its ordinary rhythm, which now feels like an upgrade rather than a lull. The interim lead runs a 5-minute huddle at the top of the hour. He reads the clause that defines eligibility, the clause that defines escalation, and the sentence that bans labels without evidence. He does not dramatize it. He reads it the way a pilot reads a checklist, steady and exact. The team repeats the numbers back to him once. The guard listens with his radio angled down, as if the policy itself were a frequency he can monitor. Upstairs, the ethics auditor builds the next layer, the part that outlives a scene. He opens a simple tracker titled Aftercare. The first line is the truth keeper, the person who named what he saw when it mattered. Jamal, interim lead, to receive mentorship and a clean path to permanent status pending review. HR replies that the paperwork is simple. He asks for one addition. Fold this into performance metrics in a way that cannot be reversed by a quiet grudge. Make courage measurable by policy compliance, not by smiles. 6:50 p.m. Compliance drafts a training invite that looks like an itinerary, not a punishment. Remote primer tomorrow. On-site recert within 10 days. Follow-up spot checks for 90 days. Each module ends with the same test. Could you justify this step on a floor with the monitor on and the mics open? If yes, proceed. If no, stop and call. The sequence is not catchy. It is hard to misinterpret. That is the point. A note pings from legal about witness protection. They want a light but real shield for the people who filmed and the people who spoke. He answers with a clean rule. Schedule equity will be monitored for 90 days. Any drop for those who provided statements without explanation triggers a review. No one will be quietly punished for telling the truth. The manager reads that line aloud to her team before she tapes the corrective sheet to the podium. You can see shoulders lower when rules like that are said where everyone can hear them. 7:10 p.m. The vendor replies again, this time with a promise to retrain and a paragraph about safety. Legal acknowledges and repeats the one question that never stops being the center of gravity. What policy number authorized your actions? A minute passes. Then another. The answer does not come. The quiet is instructive. The auditor drafts the first slide of the new module that will be used across the portfolio. Title: Equal application is a skill, not a mood. Section 1. What policy is? Section 2. What policy is not? He adds a case page built from the lobby footage with faces cropped and audio leveled, annotated like a lab report, timestamp, artifact, clause, decision. The strength of the sequence is that any person on a long shift can follow it exactly the same way. 7:30 p.m. The manager texts a photo of the desk at full stride. The line moves. The monitor still shows policy. A second sign holder now displays a small line that guests can read. Service decisions are made by written policy and recorded for quality. If you have a concern, ask for the clause number. The sentence sounds bureaucratic until you realize it protects everyone from mood and memory. He replies with, "A simple good. Keep it visible for 24 hours." He opens his notebook and writes 3 names by hand. Jamal, for promotion. The officer who said no aggression observed without being asked. The traveler who provided the cleanest angle and consented to share it. He does not write them for sentiment. He writes them so that when the review concludes, he remembers to make public what the system values, not just what it punishes. 8 p.m. Ownership checks back in with a brief call. They want to hear the elevator pitch for the reform in one breath. He gives it. We froze risk, we protected staff, we posted policy, we will recertify within 10 days and audit a quarter of behavior for slope, not headlines. If the slope repeats across the vendor, the contract ends. If training works and numbers move, we measure and keep the standard visible. Ownership says proceed and hangs up. The absence of adjectives keeps the path clear. Across the group, small echoes continue. A suburban property adds the policy page to its welcome screen. An airport hotel sets a nightly reminder to read the escalation clause before midnight when fatigue bends judgment. A resort prints lanyard cards with clause numbers on one side and the log steps on the other. None of it looks like a banner campaign. It looks like a map, folded into pockets. By 9 p.m., the lobby camera shows only small data points that matter to people who count what works. A family gets extra towels without a sermon, a late check-in is granted after the clause number is cited, a cash deposit is handled by the book with a receipt printed twice and logged. Jamal's voice stays steady. The guard's posture is neutral. The manager writes 2 lines in a notebook and then enters them into the system so they do not disappear in the morning. Before shutting the case for the night, the auditor types a final note into the aftercare tracker. Partner with a civil rights and equality of service organization to co-author the module, so the next class is not built in a vacuum. Invite them to read the numbers, not the press release. Then he closes with the same 3 beats that brought the lobby to heel without a shout. Terminate unauthorized authority, freeze risky access, log everything until measured. The building hums like a well-tuned machine. The standard now has a shape, a clock, and a room full of witnesses who will remember that it did not arrive as a speech, it arrived as steps anyone could take. Morning brings clean, light, and a quieter inbox. 7:30 a.m., the lobby opens on schedule. The podium still carries the printed policy with clause numbers large enough to read from 6 feet away. Jamal runs the 5-minute huddle without looking at his notes. He reads eligibility, he reads escalation, he repeats the test. If you cannot defend it with the monitor on and the mics open, stop and call. 2 new hires nod in rhythm like they have been waiting for someone to make the rules visible. By 9 a.m., the first witness statements are processed. Consent forms are stored. Clips are mirrored to the case. Legal tags 2 for training. Compliance closes the first interview with the former supervisor and schedules the next. No one posts a clip. No one needs to. The record is stronger than any caption. Day 2 at noon. Ownership approves a narrow public line. Review in progress. Access under owner control. Guests not disrupted. Outcomes after due diligence. It reads like a notice on a door that opens on time. A few headlines try to turn the moment into a scandal. The building stays with the standard. Front desks in 3 cities place the policy page on their lobby monitors during peak hours. A regional manager sends back a photo of a guest pointing to a clause and smiling like they just learned a secret handshake that keeps things fair. Day 3 at 4 p.m., the first remote primer goes live. 50 staff across the portfolio join from break rooms and offices. The slides are plain. Policy is a contract with the guest. Policy is not a feeling about a line. The lobby incident plays with faces cropped and audio leveled. Timestamp, artifact, clause, decision. Jamal reads the key sentence himself. Equal application is measured, not guessed. He does not act it. He just reads it like a map. Questions come fast and practical. Walk-ins without ID. Cash when cards fail. Late checkouts at capacity. Each answer lands with a clause number and a path that any tired person can follow at midnight. End of week. The first audit slice arrives with color that means something. Escalations marked guests only drop by half at the affected property. Watch flags drop to near zero with manager sign-off present when they exist. Complaints about tone do not spike. Service times hold steady. The change did not slow the work. It trimmed the noise. Operations overlays the numbers on the calendar and circles the moment the lobby turned into a lesson. The vendor steps into the review window with lawyers and a training deck. They promise a reset. Legal listens and keeps the loop tight around documents and policy numbers. Compliance runs their staff through the same module that owner teams completed. 2 supervisors clear the recert on the second try. 1 does not. Ownership makes the call to terminate that role. Hourly staff receive offers to shift under owner control with pay held. No one applauds. They sign and go to work. 2 weeks. The retaliation watch triggers once when a scheduler tries to slide a truth teller to less favorable hours without explanation. HR reverses it and logs the attempt. The message travels faster than any memo. The safe way to handle honesty is to protect it. 3 weeks. The Civil Rights Partner and a Service Quality Institute co-author the training module. They remove any language that sounds like a brand defense and leave the bones. Site policy. Show it, log it. Ask for help, repeat. A quiet video shows the guard from the lobby explaining why he said what he saw. It runs 3 minutes and ends with the sentence that belongs on the back of every badge. Safety includes the record. 6 weeks. The portfolio audit lands with a slope that matters. Properties with the policy on display and the huddle in place have a measurable drop in escalations without a drop in service. 1 vendor-operated desk in another city shows the same pattern that triggered the freeze. Ownership extends the review there and shifts access to owner control preemptively. The move reads like foresight rather than fire drill. 3 months. The metric board shows a 98 out of 100 compliance score at the flagship property. Guest satisfaction climbs 12 points. Staff turnover dips. The number of watch flags with correct authorization holds at a level that shows real scrutiny rather than avoidance. Jamal's interim tag drops quietly. His title reads, Lead Front Desk. He keeps the huddle short. He keeps the monitor on. The auditor returns to the lobby on a calm afternoon and stands by the ficus where a family once watched a room decide what fairness looks like. The sign holder still carries the clause page. A guest asks a question about late checkout, and the associate answers with a number before a smile. It sounds plain. It sounds like a key that fits. He sends the last note of this chapter to ownership. Aftercare complete for Phase 1. Recertification on schedule. Portfolio audit extended where slope repeats. Witness protection in effect. Truthkeeper promoted. Civil rights and quality partners embedded. Then he adds the line that keeps the work from turning into a victory lap. Standards are habits. Habits need maintenance. Night comes on the glass. The building hums. In the log, the first insult is still there at 4:15 p.m., preserved as the spark that lit a process. The system that grew around it is the point. Not revenge, reform. Not noise, proof. The hotel runs, the record holds. And somewhere, a desk that would have said guests only reaches for a clause number instead and finds its way back to service. 3 months and 1 day. The lobby looks ordinary again, in the way a well-kept instrument looks ordinary. Policy sits in the sign holder. The monitor rotates through service info and then returns to the clause page at peak times. Jamal runs his huddle without fanfare. Eligibility, escalation, the test. If you cannot defend it with the monitor on and the mics open, stop and call. The team answers in unison. Numbers, not slogans. Upstairs, the final portfolio audit lands as a table anyone can read. Escalations marked guests only fell across owner-run desks. Watch flags now require a manager's signature and a short reason field. Properties that posted policy and ran the 5-minute huddles kept service time steady and cut complaint noise. One vendor-operated desk in another city showed the same slope that started this story. Ownership extended the freeze and moved access to owner control ahead of recertification. Because the model scales, the fix travels faster than the problem. Legal closes the vendor chapter without theatrics. Parts of the contract are terminated. Hourly staff keep their schedules under owner management. Supervisors who passed recert return with boundaries. One does not pass. That role ends. Compliance publishes the schedule of spot checks for the next quarter. No countdown, no surprise, just dates and clipboards. The ethics auditor reviews the last items in the aftercare tracker. Truthkeeper promoted to permanent lead. Guard recognized for accurate witness statements. Civil rights and service quality partners embedded in the next training cycle. He scans the retaliation watch and sees only one blip that was fixed in a day. He types a simple closure note: keep monitoring. Drift is real. Habits need maintenance. He returns to the lobby in the late afternoon and stands where the ficus casts a small shadow on the marble. A family asks about a late checkout. The associate cites the clause and offers a path. The guest nods. The interaction ends without a story because it ran on rails. That is the point. The camera mounted high above the desk keeps its buffer rolling to off-site. Not for spectacle, for memory. He steps to the podium and reads the printed sheet one more time. The font is clean. The policy numbers are large enough to read from 6 feet. It feels like a receipt for fairness. The manager joins him and gives a short update. New hires clear the primer on day 1. The 5-minute huddle keeps the team aligned on nights and weekends. When fatigue bends judgment, the test holds it straight. Could you defend it with the monitor on? If not, stop. The building runs quiet and straight. He sends ownership the last field note. Freeze lifted when recert is complete. Extended where slope repeats. Training embedded. Witness protection working. Numbers move in the right direction without starving service. Then the line that closes the file without closing the work. Protect guests. Protect staff. Protect the log. Ownership replies with a single word: proceed. For the series audience, the lesson translates clean. If you run a desk, a branch, a gate, a counter, you can lift the standard in 3 moves. Terminate unauthorized authority. Freeze risky access. Log everything until measured. Make policy visible to the public. Read the clause out loud before you cite it. If your muscle memory says guests only, replace it with a number and a step. If you are a witness, film if you can and share with consent. If you lead, reward accuracy in public, not charisma behind closed doors. There is no victory lap. There is just a building that treats fairness like maintenance. The first insult is still in the record at 4:15 p.m., preserved as a spark, not a headline. The proof that followed is why this chapter ends with less noise than it started. A company that hid behind a process met a process it could not bend. That is what accountability sounds like when it is done right. Quiet, documented, repeatable. He leaves the lobby the way he arrived. No announcement, no badge held high. The sign holder keeps its place. The monitor cycles back to policy at the hour. The crowd is just travelers now. The lesson stays even when the camera stops. Standards are habits. Habits need maintenance. Keep them in the light, and the room will remember how to treat people without someone having to raise a voice.